Hello everyone, in this video we'll be exploring how to make use of multiple timelines and story groups in Pretend. For a video introduction on how to edit using only one timeline, make sure to first check out the Part 1 video, included in this video's description below. As we explained in Part 1 of this tutorial, selecting None in the project browser will open up a new project with just one timeline. However, this time we will select the Show, Scene, Shot structure, which will start our project with 3 nested timelines, or as we call them in Pretend, 3 story groups. Once your project opens up, you will see these 3 timelines inside one of another in your library. Notice how you can collapse this show level right here. That means they're all contained within it. You'll see that we currently have our show timeline open, but you can open any timeline by simply double-clicking on its group in the library. Notice that the name of the timeline is changing down here in the tabs. This is just a standard setup that you can choose to start out with, but to better understand how to use multiple timelines, I'll import a screenplay that I wrote and then shot, meaning that I'm now ready to start editing it. You can also do this directly from the project browser. Now that my screenplay is imported, you'll notice that the standard story groups have changed. We no longer have a show with a single scene and a single shot, but instead we now have a show, which is our entire script, and scene groups for each of the scenes in our screenplay. That's because Pretend generates groups for every scene of the screenplay you're importing. Now I'll also import all of the footage I shot for this project. And you can now see all of the media I've imported here in my media folder. Now if you double click on your show, you'll see all of your scenes in order behind one another in your show timeline. This structure will allow you to go into each individual scene and edit them one at a time. You'll also be able to drag specific media assets into the scenes in which they belong. I'll go into my first scene, drag in this clip. Now I'll open up my second scene and drag in my favorite clip for this one. If you go back to your show level, you'll now see the 2 scenes that have clips in them. You can choose to polish these scenes or finish dragging media into the remaining scenes first, whichever you prefer. But regardless of the order in which you work, your project is already coming to life. Now let's say you wanted to create more specific groups within your scenes. These are shot groups, and there's a couple ways to go about creating them. The first way is to open your screenplay editor and going into shot mode. In shot mode, you can scroll to a scene in your script and simply click, hold, and drag a shot. This is called shot lining and is a big part of the pre-production process, although normally it's done with a pen on a printed script. You'll see that each line shot will create a new shot group in your library, with of course its own timeline. You can then use these shot groups and their timelines to start editing and stay focused on specific parts of your scenes. Keep in mind that shot lining is a great tool to use before shooting your project, meaning you can start this process as soon as you're done writing your story, because it allows you to make sure that you have coverage for your entire script and that you're not leaving out any parts of your story during production. The rule of thumb is that if each page of your script has at least one line running through it, then you have enough shots to cover your entire script. I'll be sure to add a link to a tutorial on how to use the screenplay editor in the description. Another way to create a shot group is from your editing panel. You can select whichever scene you would like to add a shot to in your library. And from the library menu, select Add Shot. You can also right-click on a scene to do the same thing. And now that we've covered how to create multiple timelines or story groups for your projects, let's brush up on how to navigate between all of them. One way of navigating between multiple timelines is, as we've already established, through the library menu. Just double-click on whichever timeline you'd like to open. But now another way of navigating through different timelines is through the breadcrumb menu, which is this right here. Just click and hold to activate the breadcrumbs, and from there, select whichever timeline you'd like to open. Personally, this is my favorite way of working because this means I don't have to touch my library to navigate, and I can always have my media folder open. This way, I'm always able to drag media from my library into my timelines. You can also use the tabs up here at the top to open multiple timelines at a time. All you have to do is click on this little plus icon to open up a new tab, click on the tab, and navigate to whichever timeline you'd like to open. And lastly, you can use these arrows here at the top to navigate through your timeline and story group in order of hierarchy. Pretty simple. And these are all the ways in which you can navigate through your different story groups. So now that we've covered navigation, let's take a look at how to edit using these story groups and multiple timelines. So I've gone ahead and dragged media into all of my different timelines. For the purpose of keeping this tutorial simple and on the shorter side, I've also gotten rid of all the shot groups and only kept the scenes and the show they're all in. But please feel free to keep them for your own project, as they can come in great help. Editing with multiple story groups is very similar to editing with one single timeline, which we've already covered in part 1 of this tutorial. Again, the link to that video is in the description below. Let's look at our show timeline, which contains all of our scenes in which we've dragged media into. I'll zoom in to have a better view of my first couple scenes. Notice the different scene names up here at the top. That's how you know this is a scene group. Double click on it and see that you're now inside that scene group, which contains your media. Now back on the show level timeline, I can scrub through my edit and use the different editing handles to modify the length and contents of my story group. For example, in the second scene group, I'm seeing that it's not showing the part of my clip that I want to, so I'll use this slip handle to slip my clip until I have it right where I want it. Then I'll use this ripple handle to extend the length of my story group. Understand that with editing story groups, you're not really doing anything to the clip inside of the group. Rather, you're just choosing what portion of the clip to show. To put it simply, the story group acts as a window into the clip that's inside of it. But what if you want to edit from within a story group and not necessarily on this show level timeline? Just click inside the group you want to edit. Now we're in the scene group, and you can obviously make edits to your clip. Notice we know this is the clip because we see the media file name right here. And you can also add effects and text, but what if you don't want to cut up your clip? You just want to modify that window we were just seeing at the show level before. How do you know what part of your clip is being shown? This is where I'll introduce Pretend's parent bar. From your library menu, you can choose to show parent bar. Shift B is the shortcut for this. And what this does is show you what portion of your scene will be represented in your show. You can move it around, see the split screen here showing you the in and out points of your scene change within your edit, and you can also make it bigger or smaller. Notice that if I drag out my parent bar, this will lengthen my story group in the parent timeline. It's called a parent bar because it shows the space that a group occupies in its parent timeline. You don't necessarily have to use them. Again, hit Shift B to hide it. But they're a great tool to use if you don't want to go back to your show level every time you want to edit the length of a child group. You can of course use a combination of parent bar and editing tools within your group to come up with whatever feels best for your edit. And that's how you use multiple timelines in Pretend. Please feel free to share your thoughts and know that we are continuously working on making this platform more efficient to our users. We'll be adding an option to have whatever's inside the child group to simply be what's represented in the parent timeline soon. We hope you found this helpful, and now that you know how to edit using multiple timelines, you're ready to work on your cut using the help of different story groups in Pretend.